We're excited to host our Friends of Cancer Research annual meeting on November 17th in Washington, D.C. This event will be both virtual and in person, and we're so excited that many of you are going to be joining us here in D.C. We'll be covering several important topics that have an opportunity to really help reshape our current approach to oncology drug development. One of the topics that I'll briefly describe to you now is being conducted in collaboration with the American Society of Clinical Oncology. And we're beginning to describe opportunities for how we can apply learnings from the various flexibilities and protocol adjustments employed during the pandemic, and how we can leverage these to inform how to enhance future clinical trial designs. Prior to the pandemic, there were a number of workshops, recommendations, guidelines released on how we can reduce clinical trial complexity with the intent to ease the burden and improve access for patients. But unfortunately, there had been variable uptake and in some cases slow uptake of these various strategies. However, in March 2020, there were a number of strategies deployed to address the COVID-19 pandemic public health emergency. And some of those obviously included lockdowns and social distancing. And as one can imagine, this had major implications on clinical trials. And as a result, there was a need for regulators and trial funders to move quickly to release guidelines and highlight mechanisms for how one could alter trials so that they could continue while ensuring patient safety. During this period, I think COVID-19 really showed us that there are likely a lot more flexibilities that could be operationalized than we likely realized. And as we move into this next phase, we should carefully catalog the types of flexibilities and how they were operationalized to inform best practices and identify how we can integrate these more routinely in future clinical trials. And just to note, a few of the modifications that occurred during the pandemic included altering schedules for required visits, use of various types of technology to interact with patients remotely, and even allowing patient visits and procedures to occur outside of the traditional clinical trial site and infrastructure. Earlier this year, ASCO released a report where they evaluated various adaptations to care delivery, research operations, and regulatory oversight made in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, and outlined a series of recommendations that are listed here. This project that we're currently taking on is helping identify additional mechanisms to fully realize the goals that have been outlined here. And to do this, we've convened a multi-stakeholder task force that's composed of academic and community oncology practitioners, patient advocate groups, FDA, NCI, industry, and contract research organizations. This multi-stakeholder group is working towards a common goal of, again, identifying changes to protocols that were due to the COVID-19 pandemic and beginning to understand the impact these may have had on the clinical trial with the intent to develop recommendations for how to use these moving forward. And the project's been broken down into two phases, one to define parameters, and then using the findings from phase one to then begin to assess the impact these changes may have had on trials through a collection of clinical data and conduct of various statistical analyses. At our annual meeting on the 17th, we'll be sharing findings from phase one of the project, and we'll be releasing a white paper that helps extract key findings and implications for future clinical trials. including the perceived impact of these flexibilities and how this has helped outline future directions and key hypotheses to test in phase 2. The white paper and panel discussion will help provide a more comprehensive understanding of the specific types of protocol changes and trial modifications that were implemented and how these findings, coupled with phase 2, will ultimately help inform recommendations for enhancing future clinical trials. The discussion will touch on a diverse set of topics that will be covered by the panelists that you see listed here. We're so excited that they've agreed to participate in this discussion, and we look forward to having you also participate in the discussion at our annual meeting on November 17th. Thank you.